Hey everyone, welcome to the third and final installment of the Thriving Leader Breakthrough Series. I'm Whitney Sullivan. I'm a leadership coach and speaker based in Bozeman, Montana. And one of my passions in my business is to help leaders build the foundational skills they need to thrive in their leadership roles. And in today's lesson, we're going to address blind spots. So, this lesson is a little spicier than the last two lessons that we've done. But the thing about blind spots is that we all have them. We all have them. And we need to name them in order to tame them, which can take a lot of courage to look at ourselves in that way and see our blind spots. But when we do, we have the capacity to improve our relationships and our results in our leadership practice. So today, let's start to identify any blind spots we might have, because any limits that we might have in our self-awareness is going to limit our leadership. So when we take the time and build that courage to look at ourselves honestly, we will expand our self-awareness and we will expand our influence in results. Before we dive in to the 9 categories of blind spots, let's talk about what a blind spot is. So a blind spot is a gap in awareness that can negatively impact your relationships and results. And as leaders, we want good relationships and we want good results. And what can cause a blind spot? What can cause a blind spot has to do with how our brains work. So, how our brains work is that we all have a primary focus of attention that we each walk around with each and every day. And then we also have fears that we want to avoid each and every day. And what happens is that a blind spot is the gap between what you focus on and what you fear. And that's how blind spots are created. And how we name them. How do we name them? The single best tool that I found that I use with my clients in helping them identify and name and minimize their blind spots is the Enneagram. And the Enneagram is a personality and personal growth tool that shows us 9 different ways people think, feel, and behave. It also then shows us 9 different focuses of attention paired with 9 unique core fears. And that just this one tool provides us with all of this excellent language and information. And so that means that there's also 9 common gaps or categories of blind spots. And this language and this information helps us identify blind spots that might show up for us. And so if you want more information on specifically what the Enneagram is, I've dropped a link into each live, and you can download this 5 to Thrive by Enneagram type guidebook. And it's going to give you just more information on what the Enneagram is, what the unique 9 styles of leadership are. Also, in lesson number 1 of the Breakthrough series, we talked about identifying your unique leadership style. So that first one, talking about unique leadership style, and today's lesson on blind spots work really well in tandem with each other, because it's going to show you your strengths as a leader and your shadows as a leader. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the 9 types of focus of attention, the 9 fears, and the 9 categories of blind spots. And I just want you to notice what comes up for you. Notice what words and language stick with you as we go along. Starting with type 1, the improver. And I'm going to say all of these in the first person. So as a type 1, I see leadership as a duty to do what is right, moral, and good. And so I focus my attention on discerning between right and wrong and good and bad, and following the rules and standards and avoiding mistakes at all costs. I fear criticism, being bad, or not being good enough. And that gap between my focus and my fear creates a blind spot where I'm not always aware that others see me as critical or impatient, resentful, self-righteous, stubborn, or maybe unaccepting of others' perspectives. But when I'm fully self-aware and I'm at my best, I can create excellent processes. I have an incredible eye for detail. I'm really discerning. I have high standards and quality in everything that I do. Type 2, the helper. I see leadership as a duty to help others and be in service to others. So I focus my attention on helping, serving, supporting, mentoring, and meeting the needs of others. I fear and I avoid being disliked, not being useful, not being indispensable, and not being needed. This gap between my focus and my fear creates a blind spot where I'm not always aware that I over focus on others' needs and I avoid my own. And sometimes this leads to burnout. I also don't really notice that I tend to give with strings attached. I tend to give to get. And I also don't always really notice that sometimes my generosity isn't always wanted. But when I am fully self aware and I'm at my best, I facilitate connection, cooperation, camaraderie. I have this amazing ability to lift moods and highlight others' strengths. I'm also an excellent mentor and I am a great cheerleader. Type 3, the achievers. I see leadership as a duty to be the best at everything the team and I do. So I focus my attention on being successful, on winning, on achieving, and making sure that people have high regard of me. I fear failing, and I especially fear that without my achievements and without my accolades, that others won't love me. Between this focus and fear, I'm not always aware that I have a blind spot, that I lose touch with who I am in pursuit of achievement and accolades and awards. I'll pursue anything to achieve a winning image, and I avoid anyone or anything that suggests that I'm failing. But when I'm fully self aware and I'm at my best, I'm gifted at making the sell, working hard. I help the team drive to results, and I help everyone around me be excellent at whatever they set their minds to. Type 4, the creative. I see leadership as a duty to instill purpose, meaning, and a sense of significance in all that I do. So I focus my attention on authentic self expression, emotional depth, aesthetics, meaning, and what might be missing in myself and in others from being whole. I really fear being ordinary. I fear being insignificant or nothing special. And I especially fear being without purpose. This creates a blind spot where I don't always realize that I fixate on what is missing and I suffer needlessly because I'm only focusing on what's missing and I'm not focusing on what I already have and how I'm already whole. I also don't always realize that others aren't as comfortable with emotions as I am. And because I'm so committed to purpose and significance and identity and making a difference and finding emotional equilibrium, I don't realize that others sometimes experience me as self absorbed. But when I'm fully self aware and I'm at my best, I'm gifted at bringing together the individual strengths of a team to make a greater, more impactful whole. I also am uniquely gifted at instilling a strong sense of connection, purpose, and meaning within the team. Type 5 is the observer. I see leadership as a duty to advance knowledge, understanding, and objectivity. So I focus my attention on building as much knowledge as possible. I'm driven to understand. And I also focus on making sure that I minimize demands on my time, energy, and resources. I fear and avoid at all costs looking foolish and feeling incompetent or feeling unprepared. And this gap between my focus and my fear creates a blind spot where I don't always realize that sometimes I shut other people down, that I might sometimes appear cold, I might appear aloof, even though I don't intend to. And sometimes in my fierce protection of boundaries, others sometimes perceive me as stingy or inflexible. But when I'm fully self aware and I'm at my best, I'm a leader who's inventive and innovative and the opposite of a micromanager. I use my intellect to approach complex problems with rationality, calm, and clarity. Type 6 leaders, the skeptics. I see leadership as a duty to safeguard the team, to prepare for threats, and evaluate risks. So I focus my attention on what could go wrong, on what threats or risks or hidden intentions could arise. And I tend to question who and what can be trusted. I fear being unsafe, unprotected, alone, and unable to cope or to survive for any situations that might arise. And this can create a blind spot where I'm not always aware that I can hyper focus on what could go wrong, so I miss what could go right. And I don't always see that sometimes when people bring me their ideas, they can perceive me as negative or pessimistic, that I immediately go into what could go wrong. I also have a tendency to project my own fears and motives onto other people when there really might not be anything there. But when I'm fully self aware and at my best, I'm an excellent problem solver, and I am the person you want to be around when crisis does occur. Type 7, the visionary. I see leadership as a duty to innovate, plan for the future, and embody a positive outlook. So I focus my attention on the future, on possibilities, on ideas, on opportunities, on experiences. And I focus my attention on all the freedom that is out there and what interests me. I fear being limited, restricted, and I especially fear being unable to escape discomfort or pain. And this creates an awareness gap where I'm not always aware that my pursuit of only fun and positive emotions or experiences actually leads to the limitation and restriction that I fear or that I want to escape. But when I'm fully self aware and I'm at my best, I am the best person to have around to provide that kickstart energy that big projects need to get off the ground. I also can always find a silver lining, and I'm gifted at providing the workplace with a sense of fun, adventure, and playfulness. Type 8 leaders, the challengers. I see leadership as a duty to advance the big picture, advocate for injustice, and to use my power to help those who can't help themselves. So I focus my attention on making sure no one is controlling me and that I'm the one in control. I also focus on finding solutions, getting results, making big things happen, and expanding my influence. I fear being vulnerable and weak and powerless, helpless, and I especially fear being controlled by others. This creates an awareness gap where I don't always realize that other people find me intimidating. And I don't realize that I have a double standard for rules, expectations, and control, meaning that you can't break the rules, but I can break the rules. I also don't always realize how my fear of weakness shows and gets in the way of my ability to further expand my influence. But when I'm fully self aware and I'm at my best, I am tough and tender. I'm gifted at advocating for the underdog. I'm protective and assertive, and I lead with a strong influence on others. I also make a great mentor, and I have an awesome ability to empower others. And type 9, the peacemaker. I see leadership as a duty to maintain harmony, to include all perspectives, and to build consensus. So I focus my attention on making sure that everyone is heard, included, respected, and considered. I also focus on all the ways that I can keep the peace and maintain harmony of a group. I fear being in and creating conflict, chaos, and turmoil. With this gap between focus and fear, I'm not always aware that sometimes I'm passive aggressive. And I don't like being controlled by others, but I also really struggle to say no, and I struggle to make my own true desires and needs known. And I have all of these amazing ways to say no that sounds like a yes. But when I'm fully aware and I'm at my best, I can drive the right actions and initiatives forward in a way that is fair, respectful, and inclusive of everyone on the team. And I embrace the right conflicts with unstoppable courage. And that wraps up our 9 categories. And so, what I want you to do is just pick one blind spot that stood out to you today and commit to getting more curious about it. And I challenge you to take that one blind spot that you committed to getting more curious about, take that and ask 3 trusted friends or colleagues what they think about it in relationship to your work as a leader. And then after you do that, identify one strategy to address that blind spot in a way that will improve your relationships and your results in your leadership role. And if you love this Enneagram, all this Enneagram stuff, I have a workshop coming up next week, Thursday, March 2nd from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. And we're going to go over the 5 breakthroughs every rising leader needs to thrive. And we're going to break that down by Enneagram type. So I really hope to see you there. And if you have any questions, please be sure to drop them in the comments or send me a direct message. And this was the 3rd and final installment of the Thriving Leader Breakthrough Series. And you can go back to my social profiles, or you can sign up at whitneysullivan.com/breakthrough series to get all 3 replays, and you can watch them all in a row. Thank you for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you soon.